The day had started like any other in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The sun was bright, the lawns were freshly cut, and the street looked like something out of a picture. But behind one white-painted door at the end of the cul-de-sac, tension was building. From inside the house, a pair of tired eyes watched as an unfamiliar black SUV rolled slowly down the street and parked right in front of the driveway. The vehicle wasn't marked, but the presence of 5 people stepping out all at once was enough to draw attention. On the left side of the group was a woman in her late 20s or early 30s. She carried herself with a calm confidence, her hair pulled neatly into a bun. She wore a dark brown uniform shirt over a light blue collared one, a golden badge catching the sunlight on her chest. To a casual observer, she might have looked like a low-ranking officer. To those who knew her, she was far more than that. Her name was Sheriff Angela Brooks. Angela had lived in this neighborhood for only a few months, trying to keep a low profile. She didn't broadcast her position or title to anyone. She was friendly but private, someone who waved at neighbors and minded her own business. And for the most part, things had been peaceful. Until now. 3 men stepped out next. 2 wore bright green polo shirts with HOA stitched neatly in white on the chest. The third man, older, balding, with a sharp gaze, wore a dark blue shirt. He looked like the one in charge, the one who didn't need a uniform to show authority. Finally, a man who looked more intimidating than the rest walked to the front of the group. His head was shaved, his arms were covered in tattoos, and the word inspector was stamped on his shirt. A holstered gun sat openly on his belt. Angela didn't flinch, but she knew exactly what this meant. The HOA had been on her case for weeks. A small paint chip on her garage door, grass that had grown half an inch too tall, a decorative flower pot they claimed wasn't community approved. They sent letters, then fines. But when Angela didn't bow down, they escalated. Now, they had shown up in person, and not just as neighbors with complaints. This time, they brought muscle. Angela opened her door just enough to step outside. She didn't want to give them the advantage of looking in. She folded her arms across her chest, her badge glinting in the sunlight, though they didn't seem to notice, or maybe they didn't care. "Morning," she said, her voice steady. The tattooed inspector sneered. "We've given you plenty of notices, ma'am. Today we're not here to talk. We're here to enforce." The older man in the blue shirt stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "You've been in violation for weeks now. You think you're above the rules? You think you can just ignore the HOA? Angela tilted her head slightly, studying them. She could feel the heat of the sun on her skin, hear the faint sound of birds in the distance. But all her focus was here, on this group who thought they had power over her. "And what exactly?" Angela asked calmly. "Do you think you're going to enforce?" The 2 men in green shirts shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other. The woman in uniform on the left adjusted her belt, her hand brushing the holstered firearm. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then the inspector spoke again, his tone harsher. "You've left us no choice. You ignored fines, ignored notices. The HOA board voted. We called for backup. If you don't comply, law enforcement will." Angela's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. They didn't know. They thought they had the upper hand. The irony was almost too much. She shifted her weight, her voice firm but even. "Law enforcement, huh? That's funny." The inspector frowned. "What's funny about it?" Angela's gaze was sharp, unwavering. "Because I am law enforcement." The group froze. For the first time, they looked closer at her badge, at her stance, at the way she didn't flinch under pressure. "You're bluffing," the older man muttered. Angela slowly pulled her jacket aside, revealing the full badge on her chest, polished and undeniable. "County Sheriff," she said clearly. "And you're standing on my property." The silence that followed was heavy. The 2 men in green shifted nervously again, one of them whispering under his breath. The woman in uniform looked uncomfortable now, as if she'd just realized she might be on the wrong side of this confrontation. But the inspector, he didn't back down. His jaw tightened, his hand resting on his belt near his weapon. Angela caught the movement instantly. Her voice lowered, firm as steel. "Careful with that hand. You so much as touch that firearm on my property, and you'll regret it." The tension spiked. The birds outside seemed to go quiet, the air heavier with every passing second. This was no longer about paint chips or grass height. This was about control, and Angela wasn't about to lose. The standoff at the doorway stretched long enough that even the neighbors started noticing. Curtains twitched. A car slowed as it drove by, but Angela didn't move, and she didn't blink. The inspector finally broke the silence. "You think a badge scares me?" he said, stepping closer, his boots crunching against the driveway. "I don't care if you're sheriff or senator. You live here. That means you follow HOA rules." Angela's eyes stayed locked on his. "And you think showing up with guns on my lawn is enforcing rules? No, that's intimidation. That's harassment. That's trespassing." The woman in uniform at the far left shifted uncomfortably. She looked at the inspector as if silently questioning whether they had taken this too far. But the older man in the blue shirt quickly barked, "Don't listen to her. She's just another homeowner who thinks she's special. If she really was sheriff, don't you think she'd have announced it earlier?" Angela smirked slightly. "I don't have to announce it. My authority doesn't depend on whether you believe it. But I'll tell you something. Right now, you're on the edge of committing a crime you can't backpedal from." The inspector's hand twitched again near his belt. Angela let her voice cut through like a blade. "Move that hand one more inch and I swear I'll have you in cuffs before you blink." The men in green shirts were shifting more nervously now, whispering between themselves. One of them finally spoke up. "Maybe we should just, I don't know, take this back to the board. She's right, we don't have the authority to be here like this." But the older man snapped, "Shut up! We didn't come this far just to walk away. She either complies today or we write her up again and call county enforcement." Angela raised her eyebrow. "County enforcement?" She pulled her phone from her pocket and held it up. "Do you want me to make that call for you? Because guess what? When the county comes out here, they don't come for chipped paint. They'll be coming for you." The inspector's face twisted in frustration. He wasn't used to being challenged, and certainly not used to someone standing taller even without raising their voice. Angela let the silence hang just long enough, then said calmly, "You've got two choices right now. Step off my property and go home. Or you push further, and I arrest every one of you for trespassing and harassment. And I don't care how many board meetings you've held, county. Law outranks your HOA handbook." The woman in uniform looked like she wanted to speak, but held her tongue. The two green shirt men looked ready to leave. Only the inspector and the older man held their ground. "You think this is over?" the older man hissed. "You've embarrassed us in front of our team. The board won't let this slide." Angela's jaw tightened. "Then the board can take it up with my office. I'd be more than happy to sit them down and explain." "What harassment?" "Looks like under state law." The older man stepped back, muttering under his breath. The inspector lingered, his glare locked on Angela. But finally, he took one small step back too. Angela knew she'd won the moment. For now. But she also knew it wasn't over. The HOA was too proud, too power-hungry to just walk away and let it die. This was only the beginning. If you're still here watching this, let me pause real quick. Stories like this take time to put together. And if you're enjoying it so far, it really helps if you hit the like button. And if you want to see how this confrontation ends, make sure you subscribe right now, so you don't miss part 3. All right, back to the story. That night, Angela sat at her kitchen table, replaying the scene in her head. She wasn't shaken. She had dealt with more dangerous men in her line of work, but she was frustrated. How had her own neighborhood turned into a battleground over rules so petty? She opened her laptop and began pulling records. Meeting minutes, HOA bylaws, complaints filed. As sheriff, she had access to more than most people realized. And if she was going to end this, she needed to know exactly how deep it went. The deeper she dug, the worse it looked. The inspector wasn't just a hired hand. He had ties to private security companies that had been fined in other counties for overstepping authority. The older man in the blue shirt? He wasn't even a legal board member anymore. His term had expired, but he kept showing up, bullying the current board into silence. And those violations Angela had been written up for? Not a single one was legitimate under the HOA's own rules. This wasn't about chipped paint. It was about control. Angela leaned back in her chair, sighing. She had two options. She could ignore it, let them keep harassing her, wait until they slipped up badly enough that they self-destructed. Or she could take the fight to them. She thought about the faces of her neighbors, the families who probably didn't even know how badly the board was abusing its power. She thought about the nervous look on those two men in green shirts, and she made her decision. Angela wasn't just going to defend herself. She was going to shut the entire thing down. The following morning, Angela was up before dawn. She wasn't the kind of person who let problems sit and grow. Years of wearing the badge had taught her one simple rule. You either take control of a situation, or it takes control of you. The coffee machine hummed on the counter as she reviewed her notes one more time. She had already gathered enough evidence to put half the HOA board in front of a county judge, but evidence wasn't enough. This wasn't just about winning a case. This was about showing everyone in that neighborhood that the board's intimidation days were over. By the time the sun rose, Angela had already called 2 trusted deputies. She wasn't bringing them in for backup. This wasn't an official operation yet, but she wanted witnesses she could trust. If the HOA tried another stunt, it wouldn't be her word against theirs. Sure enough, by mid-morning, another black SUV rolled slowly into the cul-de-sac. Same inspector, same 2 green shirt enforcers, same balding man in blue. But this time they weren't alone. Behind them came 2 more vehicles, each spilling out more men in the same HOA enforcement shirts. Angela stepped outside before they even made it up the walkway. Her deputies stood quietly on either side of her porch, arms crossed, badges gleaming in the sunlight. The inspector looked annoyed the moment he saw them. "So this is how it's gonna be?" he growled. Angela's voice was calm, but it carried power. "This is how it's going to be. You've already trespassed once. You've already issued fake citations. And now you've escalated this into something far more serious. Do you want me to read you the list of charges I could file right now?" The older man in blue scoffed, trying to wave it off. "You're bluffing again. Nobody's going to jail over this. We're here under the authority of the HOA board," Angela held up a folder of documents. "Actually, no, you're not. I have proof right here that your term expired last year, which means every action you've taken since then is invalid. That makes you a private citizen impersonating a board officer, and that's a felony." The man's face went pale. The inspector stepped forward, trying to shift the focus. "Don't try to scare us. We've got the authority to enforce compliance. We've got contracts, signatures." Angela cut him off, sharp as a blade. "And I've got recordings. Every threat, every visit, every fake violation. I've got photos, timestamps, witness statements. I've even got the county prosecutor waiting on my call." She stepped down from the porch, closing the space between them until she stood just a few feet away. Her deputies watched closely but didn't move. Angela's voice dropped low, steady, the kind that made men freeze. "You came to my door with guns. You tried to strong-arm me like I was some scared homeowner who didn't know her rights. But I'm not just a homeowner. I'm the sheriff of this county, and you just picked a fight with the wrong woman." The 2 green shirt men shifted nervously again, clearly regretting being there. One of them actually muttered, "We shouldn't be doing this." The inspector shot him a glare, but Angela pressed forward. "You know what's going to happen?" she said. "You're going to leave this neighborhood, right now. And if you set foot on this street again under the guise of enforcement, I'll have warrants ready before you can even explain yourselves." The inspector clenched his fist, but he didn't move. Angela leaned just slightly closer, her eyes never breaking from his. "Or we can settle it right here, right now. I can cuff you, walk you into county jail, and make an example out of you so loud the entire state will hear about it. What's it going to be?" The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of a lawnmower down the street. Finally, one of the green shirt men took a step back, then another. "I'm done," he muttered. "I didn't sign up for this." The second followed him, leaving the inspector and the balding man standing alone. Angela didn't look away. She didn't let the pressure drop. Finally, the inspector's shoulders slumped just enough to give her the answer she wanted. He turned on his heel, muttering something under his breath, and stalked back toward the SUV. The balding man scrambled after him. Angela watched them pile into their cars and drive off. Only when the last vehicle disappeared around the corner did, she exhaled slowly and turned to her deputies. "File everything," she said quietly. "We're going to shut this board down for good." That night, Angela sat at her kitchen table again, but this time her mood was lighter. Her phone buzzed with messages from neighbors, some thanking her, some sharing their own stories of being bullied by the HOA. One woman even wrote, "I didn't know we had a sheriff living here. Thank you for standing up for all of us." Angela smiled faintly. She hadn't wanted to reveal her position this way, but maybe it was better. Maybe people needed to see that they had someone on their side. She leaned back in her chair, sipping her coffee, and thought about how close things had come to spiraling out of control. But in the end, it had worked out. Not just for her, but for everyone in the neighborhood. And as for the HOA, their days were numbered. If you've made it this far into the story, thank you for sticking with it. Stories like this are real, and they show just how much power people think they have until they run into someone who actually knows the law. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've got more stories like this coming, and you don't want to miss them.